Rachel Moss. I am an executive function coach, and I'm also the professional development specialist here at Educational Connections. And I am so delighted that we are going to be talking about age-appropriate executive function skills for those elementary years. Now, we're all adults here in this webinar, and we may view executive function skills as like a really grown-up type of discussion, maybe even veering into that like hallowed work-life balance kind of discussion. But the truth is that every single person at every single age deals with executive function skills and struggles. For those of us who are parents and educators of elementary learners, we may see executive function struggles manifest differently than they do in older folks. So, for example, we might see a kid shut down when they have to organize a backpack or write new vocabulary words into a sentence or keep their folders together in like a binder. And, we might at first think that these behaviors require an attitude adjustment, but really, these are opportunities for us to build and strengthen essential executive function skills that are going to help all students as they navigate every single year of their educational journey. And we have an amazing leader to lead us through our journey and discussion today. Jill is here with us. Jill, would you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your expertise?
Sure. I'm Jill Burgess. I've spent the last 30 years in the public school system of North Carolina as a classroom teacher and also as a math remediation teacher and reading remediation teacher. And then for the last several years, I've also taught online and then are fortunate enough now to be an executive function coach with Educational Connections. So I'm happy to be here today.
So, Jill, you and I are both executive function coaches, and you're working with elementary learners. Would you tell us what a typical session looks like with
Sure.
those elementary learners?
Absolutely. Well, during the school year, I'll often ask the students to take out their homework folder or their agenda so that we can go through that and see exactly what needs to be done. We'll also pull up their learning management system because most students, starting at about third grade, start to use an online platform pretty regularly for their work. So we'll also go through that. And we'll do a couple of things. We will either start making a prioritized list of what they need to accomplish over the next few days, and also a little more long term if they have some long term projects coming up. And we might also go ahead and start working on some of those assignments if they would feel like they need a little assistance with a particular project or maybe with a math assignment or some writing. And then right now during the summer, when we don't have the added pressure of homework and projects, we can really dive into some specific lessons on things like building working memory or organization or goal setting.
So, it really sounds to me like when you work with students at these elementary levels, you are planting the seeds
Yes.
of executive function early. I mean, would you tell us like what the I guess the core of those executive function skills are?
Absolutely. But we have to think about what is age appropriate for this level
Mhm.
of child, because as you mentioned, we're all dealing with the same issues, but we're at different phases in that learning process, and they're at the very beginning of it. So we have to think about what's age appropriate. For instance, time management. I think that's probably an issue for everybody, no matter what your age is. And as student, when they know they have 1 hour to get their homework done before they leave for basketball practice, well, they don't really necessarily understand exactly what 1 hour means. Even if they can tell you that 60 minutes, they don't really understand how much time, what they can get done in a 1 hour period. So we work on things like using timers to keep us on track, removing all distractions from the room so that we're not easily disrupted by a text coming in or a video game. We will also use strategies to learn how to estimate the amount of time it's going to take to do something so that we can choose the appropriate activity to work on during that 1 hour time period. So basically setting them up for some success and then teaching them how to do that for themselves.
I mean, it also, to me, it also sounds like in the environment that we create for executive function, it's also a place where students have the freedom to grow because they can like make mistakes. Like it sounds like this is a real growth mindset sort of
Definitely.
environment for executive function. Do you agree with that?
Definitely,
Yeah.
absolutely. We always want to teach children that mistakes are an opportunity to learn and grow. It's not a failure, it's an opportunity to learn and move forward. And, as the parents and as the teachers and other important adults in their lives, we can model that because things aren't always going to go our way either. So we can show them that there are disappointments, but that's an opportunity for us to figure out what went wrong, what we need to do differently next time, learn from it, put it behind us, and move on.
Yeah.
So, yes, this is definitely a great time for students to realize that just because I didn't do something well one time doesn't mean that I never will do something well.
Yeah. And this, I teach students like seventh grade and up. So I teach at the high school, middle school, and also at the college university level. And this type of thing, I mean, I can tell you the students I work with, this is something where kids of all age need it. The fact that you are working with students at these fundamental, like foundational ages, what a boon for them. And
Right.
at the beginning, I said that it's like sometimes with elementary kids, the executive function deficit may show up in a way that looks to us like defiance.
Yes.
So would you like if especially because we have folks in our webinar today that are concerned about their favorite elementary learner, would you tell us about how to maybe identify some weaker executive function skills, because we're going to share some strategies today.
Absolutely. Yes, and I agree with you. It can certainly look like defiance, but oftentimes
Mhm.
it's just a symptom of their overwhelm. For example, if we give them multi step instructions, three basic instructions, it doesn't seem like that much to us, but it does to them. And so we want to teach them how to break those three steps down and so that they see one step at a time as opposed to this long list that seems very overwhelming. But yes, refusing to get started on an assignment is often a symptom, or maybe they'll get started, but 5 minutes in, they've already given up or lost interest. Also, losing things or being forgetful, maybe for 2 or 3 days in a row, they've left that same book at school that they need to do their assignment with. It can be very frustrating for families in general when we get home at the end of a long day and we sit down and we're struggling, we might be in tears and the book that we need is at school and we can't stay focused and it's very overwhelming. And so oftentimes, like you said, as what seems like bad behavior may just be overwhelm.
Yeah. I shared this with you yesterday. When I was in elementary school, I really struggled with executive function skills to the point where my parents would often have to call like my friend that lived next door because I would forget the math worksheet. I mean, I can remember going with my dad to the post office to the copy machine to photocopy essential things. And I mean, I can remember as a kid feeling like really bad about myself
Oh, yes,
because
absolutely.
like I could see that other kids could do it, but I
Why
I
can't
was
I
on the
seem to keep
struggle
up with it?
bus.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I know that you have some amazing strategies that folks can try out. Would you tell us about like the daily habits that students
Absolutely.
do? Yeah.
Well, thank you. Creating consistency is the key. At home, you want a home base that the student knows that this is where I do homework at every single day. So perhaps it's at the kitchen table because everyone is in the house and, maybe someone's cooking dinner and someone's bringing in things from the day. And so it might be good to have the student in a very common work area so that if they need help, you're easily accessible. And near that homework space is going to be a group of supplies. So, possibly pencils, erasers, colored pencils, notebook paper, any of those just basic supplies that they may need. And the reason behind having this home base is number one, there's no decisions to be made about homework. We know where we're going to work at and we know what's there. So, there's nothing to figure out. And number two, we kind of don't have to scramble and look around. Well, where's my pencil or where's some paper? I need some colored pencils. It's all right there. So you don't have to worry about that. Then at night, it's very important to create a prep and pack routine. And what I mean by this is before bed, we go ahead and get the book bag packed with everything that's needed for the next day, packed and put in a specific location. So this may be by the front door, this may be in the car, but there's a set place that that book bag has to be before I go to bed. And of course, this is the student's responsibility, but it's also great for the student, I mean, for the parent to be able to just kind of check in, not even saying anything, but just check in and see, is that book bag by the door like it's supposed to be?
Yeah.
That's a quick, easy check, but it makes life the next morning so much easier. Maybe the lunchbox goes on the kitchen counter, maybe shoes and coat go in a set location. But that way, we all know mornings are tough enough. So that way the next morning we're not running around the house looking for book bag and oh, my notebook's not in the book bag and I can't find my coat. It's all taken care of before we go to bed. And then, there's a lot to remember. And we mentioned multi step instructions. So it's great to have a visual task list that the student can look at to make sure, did I put my book bag in the right place? Are my shoes in the right place? Is my lunchbox in the correct place? So that they don't have to try to remember it all because they've got a visual checklist to reference. And then finally, at the end of the week, whether that be Friday afternoon or maybe over the weekend, but you want a weekly cleanup time to reset. So you might want to make sure that the workspace is neat and organized, replenish any materials that need to be replenished, and basically set yourself up for a good, healthy week.
Yeah, that's I love that, and I think too, like I think it would be so cool if it was like the whole family. Like there's mom's coat and bag, there's the
Yes.
kids' coat and bag. Like the whole family had their little like zone of success.
That's right. Oh, I love
Yeah,
that zone of success. Yes. And it's so true because we all do need certain things that we have to carry out the
yeah,
door at a certain time. So that's right. Why not make it a family affair?
yeah. I gotta say, I do that when I go to the grocery store because I'm one of the people that like brings their own bags and cooler and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So it's like that day, it's like it's all there, so I can head out the door.
There you go. That's
Yeah,
exactly right. So it applies to all walks of life. That's for sure.
yeah. So our sessions, you gave us this amazing strategy that anybody can try out at home. Tell us about how the sessions they support what families are doing at home for kids.
Yes, absolutely. Well, like I mentioned at the beginning of the session, we oftentimes go through and just see what's on the agenda. What do we need to tackle? Because there's some things that have soon due dates, close due dates, and some things that the due date may not be for a month away. And that can be overwhelming for a student because a month seems like, forever away. But as we all know, that month will creep or will move by very quickly. And the next thing you know, it's 2 days before the due date and you have a month's worth of work to do. So we help them get themselves organized, both within their book bag and their notebooks, but also in terms of a plan. And then we also work on other strategies like goal setting to set themselves up for future success, organization, time management, and then also subject tutoring as needed.
Hmm. Yeah, and I mean the I know that there's a strategy like we've been talking about. I use this one in my sessions with older students, and I think that our 4C strategy is a great one to
Yes.
illustrate how the session also has like this translation into the real world, So would you tell us about the 4C strategy and how it's
Sure.
both, on the computer and in the practical world?
Yes, definitely. Okay, so you see the four steps there. We start out by cleaning because oftentimes when an area needs to be organized, it's usually a hot mess. So you start out by cleaning it, getting rid of anything we don't need anymore, and basically sorting through things and seeing what we have. Then we're going to customize. So it depends on what we're customizing. Is this a notebook? Is this a closet? But we think about, well, what are the specific needs of this? And then I can customize it accordingly. And then within that customization, I can categorize things. So if I'm looking at this messy closet here, maybe we have short sleeve shirts and long sleeve shirts. And then maybe there's an area for folded clothes and hung clothes and an area for socks. So we want to categorize them according to their needs. A lot of students are involved with sports. So there could be an area that's for lacrosse and basketball uniforms and that kind of thing. And then finally, I always talk with my students about the continue step.
Mm,
That is probably the most important because it's the ongoing step. The the key to maintaining, because as we all know, we can make our closet or our notebook or our refrigerator look beautiful and pristine. But if we don't take those steps to continue, whether it be on a daily or a weekly or a monthly basis, we know we'll end up right back where we started out before long if we're not careful. So we have to continue. And you mentioned digital. So this what I really like about this is it truly applies to anything. I have a student currently that I'm working on closet organization with on using the 4 C's. I've, of course, used this for notebooks and binders. And then it is excellent for a Google Drive because it's
Yeah.
so easy to just save things in the Google Drive. But when it's time to find it, you have no idea where it's saved. So if in elementary level, we can usually create a folder for math. And then within math, there's another folder for the various units of study. And then same thing, a folder for reading. And within that reading folder, there's a folder for the various books that we're reading and the assignments that go along with those books. And same thing for science and history. So it's a great way to get organized in literally any part of your life.
Yeah. I mean, I use this strategy with every single student I work with, because it doesn't matter your age. It's sometimes the amount of things that we have and the things that are necessary. If we can't find them efficiently, that can increase stress. And I think that's
Mm,
too like the point that that you showcased at the beginning about the way that the frustrations about executive function skills manifest for our younger students.
right.
This to me would be something that would really reduce that.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
it's clear and easy to follow.
Yeah. And one of the other things that you brought up earlier was time management
Hmm.
for younger students. So would you
Yes.
tell us a little bit about how you work with this? And also, this is another great one that anybody can
Right.
try with their favorite learner.
Absolutely. Yes. A lot of times students feel like they don't have time to do the things they want to do. We have all this homework and then I have to be at practice at a certain time and I've got chores that my parents have assigned me. And so they know all the things that they have to do, but they seem like they can't get to the things that they want to do. So that's the first thing we do is we learn how to distinguish between priorities that are obligations and things that are more of a, this is something I would just love to do if I could find a free moment. So we spend some time oftentimes looking at scenarios, cartoons, videos of other students and looking at their struggles and deciding what their priorities and obligations are and then what their more want tos are. And then we make a plan for them. And so then we can take that and apply it to our own lives because students have started to see that if they'll create a schedule for themselves, then they really can make time for the things that they want to do. As you can see here, the students in school from 8 to 3, but they've got from 3 to 6 o'clock before dinner that they can create just a brief. It does not have to be a detailed schedule, just a brief, basically list of, well, I need to get my math assignment done, and I've got reading that I need to do, and then I've got some science vocabulary words I've got to work on. And then they realize, well, gosh, if I'll go ahead and get started on that as soon as I get home, I really do have time to take the dog for a walk. And I really do have time to go online and play video games with my friends. So they realize that, if I will manage my time with a schedule, again, visual, that's easy to see, I really can make time for the things that I just want to do, but don't have to do.
Yeah. And I think that this probably too would really help kids with goal setting.
Oh, absolutely.
Because then, if you know how long something's going to take, even something where it would seem a little bit more difficult, you could make a better plan. And you
Right.
have another strategy that I got to say, I use this one all the time with my college students.
Oh, great.
Because yeah, this one can do goals. I feel like it can really apply to anybody. Would you tell us about how this works and how this helps our elementary learners?
Yes, absolutely. Well, as you mentioned, time management and goal setting go hand in hand. They really do. And so I've been working with students on a variety of things. It may be an academic goal, like bringing a C in science up to a B by the end of the quarter, or it may be learning to cook 3 meals by the end of the summer. But those are all things that we want to write a clear goal, make sure that it's easily understood. Is it appropriate? Is it appropriate for me at this point in my life? And that's one thing that I really like to point out to students is when you're setting a goal, it's personalized to you. So it
Mm,
really doesn't matter if it fits anybody else. Does it fit you? Is it appropriate for you
mm,
at where you are in this game? And then is it numerical? So we always put some type of number in there. I need to make, to get the C to a B, maybe I know I need to make it 85 on the next 3 quizzes. Or if I'm trying to create 3 good meals by the end of the summer, just a number in there so that I can track it easily. And then is it doable? Is it appropriate? I want this to be an attainable goal, something that I really can accomplish. I don't want it to be too easy, but I don't want it to be too lofty either. And then what obstacles do I need to take into consideration? And I remind students that obstacles will happen. That's part of life. So we want to go ahead and anticipate what we can, be ready for them. And then also, when those obstacles present themselves that you never saw coming, came out of nowhere, it's okay. We can deal with them. And what's nice, again, because this is a personalized goal for them, we can tweak it, we can rework it. If things are not working well, we don't have to keep the same goal for 2 months. We can change it next week if we need to, if we
yeah.
realize that it needs a little tweaking. And another thing is, if they do have a lofty goal, we can use several small goals to help work up to that really big goal. So, again, it can be used in all walks of life from academic to personal.
Yeah. One of the things I do with I personally do with this is I talk to students about how obstacles aren't always negative things.
Mm,
So, yeah, so for example, I have a student on my roster that we've set some can-do goals, and the student is like an amazing athlete. And they're setting up like a study schedule. And one of my questions is always, what happens if you are bone tired from volleyball? Because that's a very positive thing in your life,
mhm,
but it could be an obstacle to this study schedule. I think this is so valuable because it's not something that is like knocking a kid for their interests or not saying like, oh, it's bad to play video games or it's bad to
right.
FaceTime your friends. It's just saying, look, you have a lot of facets in your life. Let's make time for everything.
All of them. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
And what I've noticed, Jill, is through this whole process, you're also like kind of giving us a little like peek into the setup of our executive function sessions. So our
Yes.
sessions have 4 parts. We check through students' work, which you talked about when you talked about like the academic sessions
Right.
and also the summer sessions, checking in
Mhm.
on progress. You're talking about the way that you make plans, whether it's academic or summertime, working through things collaboratively. And the last facet is the reflection piece. Will you
Yes.
talk to us about reflecting with younger students? And again, these are strategies we use. These are strategies anybody in this webinar can try with their favorite learner.
Absolutely. Yes. And the reflection piece is such an important piece because, as I mentioned, we can tweak things, we can change things, we can customize them however it needs to be. But in order to know what needs to be changed or customized, we need to spend some time in reflection. We want to think back on what went well and why do we think it went well. And obviously, we want to continue that and build on that. And then we want to think back on maybe the things that didn't go like we expected or like we wanted and try to figure out why they did not go as well as expected. And then what can we learn from that so that we can grow and move on and build on that as well. So then when we create our next goal or our next plan, we can use what we learned from the first one to improve upon the second one.
I mean, it's just so awesome how it's not just like tailored to a specific kid in a specific moment. It's like retailoring,
Right. It
refocusing. Like
grows with them.
yeah,
Yes.
every single session is a chance for advancement.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. So, okay, we're going to get into a little Q&A, but
Okay.
before that, shameless plug of, of tomorrow's webinar. So tomorrow we're going to be talking executive function issues with middle school students. I'm going to be having a great conversation with Sarah Remlinger, and we're going to talk about why strong executive function skills are a game changer in those middle school years. So as we're doing our Q&A, we are always here to answer questions about our executive function coaching, subject tutoring, test prep. We have a QR code on the screen. You can scan and get into that information at any point. But now is our time for some great Q&A. I want to address, like, I love the comments that Hope has been putting in the chat as we've been talking. I don't know if you saw them, Jill.
No, I did not.
They are outstanding. So Hope, it says that she is a middle school special ed team teacher, and she shared that she is loving these strategies because they're, even though she's working with kids that are in middle school, these are applicable to older students as well. And I got to tell you, Hope, like I said, with the can do goals, the 4 C's, I use these with kids in college. I mean, I have some kids in, like, I through Educational Connections, I worked with a student in a cardiology program and we were doing can do goals because it doesn't matter, your age or your ability
Right.
level.
Right.
You need to be able to manage time and, you know, organize things for yourself.
Right.
So, I don't know if anybody has any questions. Um, I mean, I know that we have some things we kind of wanted to, talk about too a little bit. So, like, I think what I'll do is, why don't I start off with a question,
Okay.
and then maybe that'll inspire some other folks to put their questions in the chat. What do you think about that, Jill?
Sure. That sounds great.
Okay. So this is because this is one that I think everybody that has a learner that they care about faces. Do you have any suggestions, Jill, for a time when there is a student who maybe is not so academically motivated?
Mhm.
They don't want to do homework. They don't want to do schoolwork. What can we do to help a student like that?
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, I think sometimes goal setting can help with that because, as you mentioned, in the moment, there's certain subjects and certain times that we all go through that we're just not interested. We're not motivated. We don't want to do it. And so, if we can set some goals for the future, maybe make some plans, it can be something very extrinsic. Maybe if we will just work through and use this time wisely and make the grades that we know the child is capable of making and make the growth that they need to make, then maybe we can have a fun family outing together. It doesn't have to be something that's expensive or time consuming. It can just be maybe a half day where we go out as a family. So we can help that child set some goals and make a plan for how to get there. And then at the end, if they've worked hard, we can use that as an opportunity for, like I said, a fun family outing.
Yeah. I think too, sometimes having students see, like when you were talking about time management,
Hmm.
one thing that I often observe as a coach and an educator is that sometimes students have an idea in their head that these non-prioritized tasks are going to take forever. You know,
Right.
like, and when they see that studying the spelling words or doing that math worksheet only takes 20 minutes, it gives them a newfound sense of confidence. Um,
Right. They see the
which,
light at the end of the tunnel.
yeah, yeah. And I love that little, almost like that little timetable that you shared earlier,
Right,
because
right.
sometimes kids can use something like that not to fill in what they're going to do, but how long it took to do to
Yes,
on
absolutely.
later.
And, we talked about a goal that could be a daily thing in terms of for that student that maybe is just really unmotivated. It could be a daily thing that if we
Yeah.
create this schedule for the next 2 hours or 1 hour and we get this list of things done, then you've got 30 minutes or an hour that you can go play with your friends or you can get online or you can, do whatever it is you're wanting to do. They can see that I don't have to spend from now until bedtime doing homework, like sometimes it feels like.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have another question because I feel like, maybe we'll talk a little bit more and then some folks will put their thoughts in the chat because oh golly, we would love to have questions from anybody here. If you're concerned about your favorite elementary learner, or maybe you have like a situation or a scenario that you would maybe want a little bit of clarity about.
Mhm.
So I'm going to give Jill a little situation scenario, okay? Uh, Based perhaps upon some children I have worked with in my time.
Okay.
Do you have suggestions for that kid that thinks their systems are just fine? Like we as adults sometimes, look at kids and go, "Oh, honey, that that system is a dumpster fire." And the kid's like, "No, it's great. I can get everything done." Do you
Right.
have any suggestions for when a student's systems, we recognize they're not the best? How we can help them to have something more productive and to reduce their workload and stress load?
Absolutely. And I think that's very common. Like you said, students were like, well, it's working well enough. So what we can do is go through and look at their system and say, well, tell me, what is your system for knowing what assignments you have to do this week and knowing when they're due, and get them to explain it to you. And then actually ask them, well, what are the pros? What are the good things about that? What's working well? And why is it working well? Then we can say, well, what are the things that they're working okay, but they might could be better? And
Mhm.
usually, if you not kind of talk at them like this is what you're doing wrong, but if you just
Yeah.
have a conversation with them and ask them to explain why they like this aspect of it, or why maybe this aspect could be changed just a little bit, oftentimes they will give it some genuine thought and say, well, yeah, I mean, it's getting me by, but it probably
Mhm.
could be a little better. And then we can brainstorm together, what can we do differently to improve? And sometimes you can insert, well, here's a suggestion. What do you think of this? Are you willing to try this suggestion? Other times the student will come up with it on their own. But I do think it's a matter of giving them ownership and helping them to feel that ownership.
Mhm.
Also helping them to feel that you value their opinion, that you're not just telling them that what they're doing is not good and it's not bad, it's not good, it's not working, you should give it up. Letting them share their genuine thoughts with you and letting them do their own assessment of it, and truly think through it with you as opposed to just being talked to. I
Yeah.
think they appreciate that, especially about older elementary and middle school. They seem to appreciate being asked their opinions and why they're doing things certain ways, given a chance to try it, and it either work or fail. And that's okay if it fails. Again, we learn from it and we move on. I think they appreciate being given more of an adult chance to make the decision for themselves.
Yeah. I was working with a student, like new to my roster, and one of their goals is to procrastinate less. And the conversation that you're describing is one that I had with this student. And I mean, as I was like kind of listening, in my head, I'm thinking, oh, this is bad, you know. But I was asking clarifying questions like, what
Right.
works for you? Like, what's attractive to you about this? And the student told me very honestly. See, when I do it this way, I don't have to think about the work until the last minute.
Hmm.
It was eye-opening for me because this is not something I would do, but I understood it.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, and so
Exactly.
then I could ask like, well, does that feel good or bad when you're
Right.
doing it at the last minute? Like, like honestly, do you like that? You
Yes.
know? That was a great, it opened up the door to good conversations.
Absolutely. They feel like
Yeah,
their thoughts are valued by you and they will genuinely think it through with you. So, yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So we have some great questions in the chat. Hope wants to know what are some calming superpower strategies when things seem overwhelming?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you something that I believe has worked for several students is knowing that they don't have to work for 2 hours straight, because as you mentioned, it can seem very overwhelming and you just want to shut down and do absolutely nothing. But if there's a timer set for 25 minutes, say, and they know they only have to work for 25 minutes. And that does not sound like that long to a child. So for 25 minutes, they're going to work. They don't have to worry about what time it is because they know that the timer's going to ring and they'll hear it. And they know that when that timer goes off, they get to take a 10-minute break.
Yeah,
They can do whatever they want to do for 10 minutes. And then we set the timer, and then they can have some say in it. Well, do you want to try another 25 minutes, or would you like to increase it to maybe 45 minutes? What do you think would be doable? What do you think you can handle? That seems to be a great way, because that way they don't feel that, oh my gosh, I've got to sit here till, 7 o'clock and do my homework. No, 25 minutes. That's all you got to do. We'll take it in little spurts. And that seems to be a lot more manageable and less overwhelming.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is, and this is something that just in the chat right now. Wayne says, "Can we use the Pomodoro strategy?" That
Yes, yes,
yeah,
yes, yes.
we love the
Yes.
Pomodoro strategy. I mean, on my shelf over here, I have a little tomato timer
Hey, cool.
because it works great. That is one that can really help kids. It takes a lot of the heat off of it because
Yes.
that timer, it isn't a race. One of the like phrasing that I always use with kids is like, look, we're not setting this timer to see how fast you can do something. We're setting the timer to see how long quality work takes for you personally.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because then it's like you're not, this isn't like the tortoise and the hare. You don't have to run as fast as you can, but
That's
we
right.
want to see what quality work looks like for you. And many times that giving them the ability to walk away for 5 minutes, get the
Right.
wiggles out.
Huge. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So, okay, so we have some other great
Okay.
questions here. Um, Wayne wants to know what are some resources that we can use to get better equipped to help kids move into like better executive function?
Some resources we can use to get better equipped.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we certainly have some wonderful classes here that you can take so that you have a partner because, it's hard for parents too when you feel like you have to figure this out all on your own in the midst of your own job and that kind of thing. And so we certainly can work in partnership. And that's actually one thing that I really like about working with Educational Connections is I am in constant communication with the parents.
Mhm.
We can email back and forth as many times as we need to. We can text, we can talk on the phone. It's a great way for us to work hand in hand as a team. So then
Mhm.
neither one of us is trying to do it all, by ourselves. So I
Yeah.
think that is a wonderful aspect of working with Educational Connections is you do have that team. And I know a lot of times I'll get an email or a text from a parent right before a session of particularly say a sixth grader who there's some attitude involved and, they don't want to hear anything mom or dad has to say, but I'm kind of the outside party. And so they can tell me what's going on, just give me a little update. And then I can talk to the child about it without the tears and without the anger and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I do think we work as a great team. And
Mhm.
it's good to know that you have a partnership.
Yeah. And every single session, we send detail-rich notes. So it's
Yes.
like the way I always describe it is I really pride myself on giving families fly on the wall insight into what
Yes.
it was like when we were working together. The other thing I'm gonna say too for Wayne is some of the strategies that Jill shared earlier, the 4C strategy, setting up for success with that weekly meeting, those are great ways to start to introduce this you know and all of these things they work. So Wayne said that he does homeschool enrichment classes. So these are all things that you can use at any level. So I
Yes.
mentioned this earlier. I am certified for high school through college. I use all of these these same strategies with my older students, but instead of like maybe saying I'm going to do good at the science fair,
Right.
I'm doing things like, okay, we have to write 4 term papers and they're all due in the same week. The strategy is the same. It's just the goals and
Right.
the age that changes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
So,
true.
so we have a couple questions there that I think kind of go together, and these ones are about like defiance, because
Okay.
I think this was like an inroad, these behaviors where it's like, okay, maybe this is executive function. So Dawn is asking, can you share some strategies for dealing with an elementary school age child that is engaging in some back talk, is engaging into like some like hitting and yelling at siblings, like that type of
Right.
thing?
Right, yes. And again, that can be common at certain periods in a child's development. I think we have to show mutual respect that I don't speak to you this way, I don't talk to you this way, and I don't expect you to treat me this way as well. So we want to have mutual respect. And then sometimes I think we both have to just walk away, that we have to have a moment to calm down because as we all know, as teachers and parents, that in the heat of the moment, sometimes we say and do things that we wish we wouldn't have, and we have to take a moment to let everyone cool off. And so maybe we just walk away. We take 5 to 10 minutes to just be in the silence and to calm down, and then we come back together and say, okay, let's sit down. We don't want to treat each other this way. We don't want to. This is not how we're going to live our lives. This is not how our family functions. And so let's sit down and let's figure out what's going on together. What can I do to help you? And what can you do to contribute a more respectful tone to your parents and to your siblings?
Yeah. And we have one that kind of, I think, bridges with this. How do you tell the difference between can't and won't?
Hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
And it can be difficult, I have to admit. But I do think we can pick up on little cues. A lot of times we can see when we talk, maybe we're just talking to a student and we can see the depth of understanding, but they don't take the time to put it down on the paper or type it so that the
Mhm.
teacher can see it. I think that's an opportunity for us to say, look, I have witnessed your intelligence. I know what you're capable of doing and you're not showing it. And then we can go through and say, well, let's work on some strategies together to make this a little more doable for you. Because right now, I know for instance, I've spoken to many students that are interested in the topic. They're just not interested in putting it down on paper. And so, like,
Right.
I know you've got the knowledge. What can we do to make it a little less painful for you in getting this work done? And again, I think that's when maybe a schedule or a goal can help tremendously because they see the light at the end of the tunnel. I do have to sit down and do this, but it's not going to be the end of my day. There are other aspects of my day that'll be a little more enjoyable. And I think just creating a plan to help get them through that, and they also can reap the benefits of the success as well.
Yeah. So I want to address something that's in the chat I saw a couple times. We are sending out a recording of this like in 24 hours. So if you missed the beginning, if you signed up for yesterday but couldn't attend, check your email because you're going to get the recording of this, so that you can review or like watch any part that you missed. So, okay, a couple more questions. Man, these are like really good questions. Can these strategies help a student who is not an independent worker become more confident to try becoming an independent worker?
Absolutely. Yes, I think that is so true. It's a matter of building that confidence through a gradual release. In the beginning, it may be very one-on-one help, in that maybe you sit down together and literally open the homework folder together and go through everything together. And then a day or a week at a time, say, okay, well, this week I'm going to let you handle math completely by yourself. And I will be happy to answer any questions you have, or I will be happy to check behind you, but I want you to completely handle it. And I know you can do it. So we're building up that confidence. And once they get to the point where they feel confident with that one subject, and maybe you choose the subject that they're already most interested in or already most confident in, and that's the one you release to them first. And once they see, oh, I really can do this, then you can say, okay, well, let's try science. And I'm going to let you take on science by yourself this week. So really a gradual release and letting them know that you're always there. You're always there to support them. You're never going to walk away, but you believe in them and you know that they can do this on their own. So let's just give them a little more independence, a little more independence. And I think especially, at the elementary level, it may have been to the point that the parents were doing a lot for them, always have, when we have a little one, we do everything for them. And so it's a matter of them saying like, well, maybe I really don't need my mom to do every little thing for me. Maybe I don't need my mom to pack my book bag for me. I can handle this. Just slowly releasing a few things or one thing at a time to them. And then eventually, before you know it, you've released most everything to them. And you're always there for support and backup.
That's beautiful. I also feel like this could be something where you could even, if you're using that Pomodoro technique and the student is responding well to that, you could almost do it like that. Hey, could you work by yourself for 15?
That's a great way to do
Try
it.
it that way. And then, you and mom will work together for 15,
Right.
Also in the
Yes.
classroom, that would be great because I know as an educator, there's always the kiddos that are like, That like the hand is just like there.
Yes,
You know, they
constant.
want
I
you
need you to
right
try
there
this.
with them. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I think we have time for one more.
Okay.
So this is a question that's about standardized testing,
Okay.
which definitely is affecting our elementary learners.
Yes.
Any tips for a child who overall performs well academically, but when it comes time for those big tests, gets impatient, gets fidgety and distracted, and chooses any answer to just end the test? So, in
Hmm.
this situation, the test results are coming back terrible, but the
Right.
academics are good. So, like, do you
Right.
have any suggestions of how to help that particular student?
Yes, yes, and I have been through many a standardized test, so I completely understand that. I think a lot of it has to do with stamina, actually, because they're literally put in the room for 3 to 4 hours to answer these long, test questions. Sometimes the reading is 3, 4, 5 pages long for one article, and it may or may not be on something they're interested in, and so we have to build stamina. A good way to build stamina is by having the child read silently for, 15 minutes a night, then maybe eventually increase it to 20 minutes a night, and then 25 minutes a night, and 30 minutes a night. And that's really enough right there. But anything to build stamina, and we do that long term for, 4 or 5 nights a week for the entire school year, and of course throughout the summer as well, is a great way to build stamina. Also, teaching them to be able to check the clock so that they know how long they've got, and tell them to take their own breaks, that there might be a built-in break after 60 minutes, but you don't have to wait 60 minutes to take your own break, that after 15 or 30 you can put your head down and close your eyes and count to 100, and once you've done that you pick up your head up and you get back to work. But I think giving them opportunities to like I said, build stamina and then take their own breaks are a great way. Also, teaching them that within your desk, you can do little movements that aren't going to be distracting to anybody else, like, ankle and wrist movements and turning the head sideways, anything to kind of get the blood flowing, especially after they've been sitting there for 2, 3 hours and their energy level is going down. They just want to go to sleep, which I completely understand. All those little things to sort of boost themselves up. Those are just good little tips that they can do right at their desk that's not going to disrupt anyone else in the class, and the teacher's not going to be upset with them or anything like that.
Yeah, I have spent many years proctoring,
Hmm.
editing questions for those types of tests. It's rough on kids.
It is.
I think if you've been out of the classroom for a minute, it is a I would really use the word punishing to describe that type of day, you know. So
Hmm.
I
And
think
it's
that's
3 or 4 days in a row.
yeah.
Hmm.
I think that's a really powerful question to ask, and I think that it's also one that's a really good one to end on because all of these strategies really add up to help in one of those more extreme academic situations.
Right.
So you have our QR code on the screen. There is also a link in the chat right now that you can click if you're interested in learning more from us. We are so delighted that you were here with us today. Jill, I wish I could like just talk with you every day. I don't know if it would be recorded, but it should be because you're so fun.
Uh, Thank you. I've enjoyed it immensely.
So thank you all for everything, and we hope to see you tomorrow.
Yeah.